Chapter 16. When the time comes for the beginning of the changeover of consciousness through the conversion of the critical number of the necessary percentage, the ripple effect will seem to be unnoticeable. Just as the number of people who now believe that there is interplanetary travel has now reached the critical mass. A remainder still staunchly reject the acceptance of this belief, but that rejection is a shell to protect the rest of their beliefs, for if they are wrong about extraterrestrial visits, then they must entertain the possibility that some or all their beliefs are possibly false. There are compelling reasons that the evidence of these visits has been so vehemently denied by both governmental and religious powers. Yet it provided them with a fear weapon, and the temptation to use it as such seduced them into bringing it forth as fanciful entertainment. That Earth governments had the abilities to develop the capability was offered in positive possibility within futuristic settings, just as the first attempts to leave the planet itself were idealized. The nonsense of the distortions is indeed ludicrous when viewed in the true picture. However, the truth has escaped their best efforts, and it has indeed put a sizable crack in the acceptance of their carefully concocted depiction of who and what mankind is and the cosmology of its existence. The denial of the existence of anything that has enough people with actual experiences now using the available communications to tell their stories is causing the crumbling of the foundations of the credibility of the whole lie. This was done, not by shocking the population with a big expose, but instead nibbling away at it a little at a time. Now the credibility gap is enough that through this doubt, greater truth is being readily accepted. The truth is that this planned bid for global power was set into motion indeed thousands of years ago. Incredible as it seems when the known ancient history is researched and traced back, the plan lays open to discerning minds and is available in print, though the conclusions are not entirely clear. There are no secrets in manifested reality. The further along the evolution of self-aware beings, the more easily situations and other beings are perceived and understood. The temptation to exploit those of lesser evolvement is great indeed in the midst of experience modes between positive and negative experiences. Victim consciousness is the epitome of the negative experience. It draws through the law of attraction like energy, or in other words it draws situations that exploit that consciousness. In acquiring this understanding, it is then obvious that the very first step humanity on this planet must achieve in order to transcend this mode of experience is to shed victim consciousness and regain the self-empowerment mode. Until the crack in the seemingly airtight education of mankind as to his place within the cosmology of the galaxy, universe widens, it is difficult to expect many to accept the truth that the Father, God of the past and present is a hoax. This is because first there must be something demonstrable in an experiential fashion that will replace it, and it must be the absolute truth. In this process, giving up the victim consciousness through self-empowerment is the beginning step. In order to do this, self-awareness, the ability to consider the individual self over the group loyalty is basic. Me first has been exploited through the encouragement of selfish sexual and materialistic practices as a guard to prevent the discovery of this basis of the human expression of who and what manifested life is. When this next fissure in their foundation becomes a wide enough crack, then the bitter contents of their house of cards will pour forth with repercussions that will lift the human consciousness despite their efforts to enslave it. As the law of attraction works, they draw to themselves like energies, experiences. The laws of the universe indeed work in mysterious ways to allow for return to balance, while allowing expansiveness through wisdom gained in experience of both the positive and negative expressions. Neither is inactive, both are at play simultaneously, thus keeping the balance. During the time spent at the point of balance, all is at rest, just as there is a moment between breaths. During each act of breathing, various functions that are either positive or negative proceed within the body unnoticed because of the governing of the functions of the nerve system in the body. This can be correlated back to the galaxy in comparing the governing system that functions in the fashion of the nervous system. The human body is a marvelous expression that has the capability of mimicking its source and can function at many levels of holographic and dimensional experience. The gift of an experience within one is to be greatly appreciated and honored. Those beings experiencing in what might be termed older models desire greatly to have the capabilities of your improved one. Thus you have visitors bent on making this happen, but meaning no harm to you. The methodology reflects many of the capabilities theirs lack. For those remembering the experience of interacting with them, this is difficult to accept as reason for these situations. Nonetheless, permission was asked and received at a level of consciousness that is not yet available to their awareness. Those granting this are greatly appreciated for this gift of greater life experience that will be the result. Indeed, there have also been visits from a very much older group that left their unwanted mark long ago, and they have been barred from return visits. Any further returns will be with severe repercussions for those individuals, for these would be without the approval of their own kind. This brings forth the previous mention of an extraterrestrial group that are not only assisting the group planning enslavement, but in actuality carry great anger toward this planet. These beings attempted to take over this planet not long after humanity was marooned on it. Not comprehending the warlike genetic alteration, even though they had superior weaponry and control technologies, humanity repulsed them. Retribution has been planned since that long ago time. The control and enslavement plan has been theirs from the beginning. That they come and go and confer with the hierarchy of the planners is kept secret, thus you have secret societies within secret societies. Eternity is a long sequential time, and so they have slowly and carefully laid their plans over many, many years in your counting. The planetary awareness of this presence, which could not be totally hidden, has been translated into Satan or the devil, and thus the tool of fear has been implanted and personified so that you hold it in your consciousness and resist it in a non-reality mode. Those that have been influenced into being the stooges in this long-standing plan reflect the consciousness of those they consider benefactors, and they in turn are attracted by the victim stance and consciousness of the rest of humanity. They have not fathomed the plan that is behind the one they are being guided to perpetrate on their fellow humans. If the total plan is allowed by humanity to be completed, the planet may or may not be habitable. Those particular extraterrestrials do not care, so long as they are able to achieve their revenge. Indeed, they are farther out of balance than Earth. There is much to be accomplished in the scenario that is playing itself out in these pivotal days that are upon Earth and all her inhabitants. Chapter 17. Through these messages it is hoped that each will strive to verify the inferences made here in brevity. The information is available to verify the historical delineation of the recent, last several thousand years religious hoax that has been perpetrated. However, this is not to indicate that this was even the beginning. Within this branch of humanity, through the alteration of the DNA, RNA, the inner programmed desire for balance continued to resonate. It was subliminally known that the imbalance was brought about by outside forces. There was then an innate desire that the same outside forces should restore it. There was not conscious memory or records of any kind to indicate who or what had been the source of this imbalance. It was natural for the descendants of this branch of humanity to desire this correction from every outside/extraterrestrial visitor they came into contact with, benevolent or otherwise. This desire was converted over time into deification and worship with ritual religious dogma to support and spread it. The focus of these religious formats were both positive and negative, with each attempting to influence the other over time, or worse yet destroy each other. Though the benevolent beings have endeavored to teach the truth and explain each time, their lessons were soon distorted back into the religious dogma of looking for help from outside to rescue mankind from its problem. And so it is at this very moment, except for those few that have already figured it out are now gleaning the truth from those few who know or from these messages. Knowing the truth and knowing what to do after the truth is learned is another matter. The universal laws require that this branch of mankind must come into understanding and with deliberate focus overcome their victim consciousness through personal responsibility to change their experience. This first step opens the doorway to re-entry into the galactic family that they have been separated from for so long. The family is anxious for your return and desires to help in any way that is allowed, but Earth's inhabitants must make this first step on its own with only the guidance of its necessity to assist. Then by directly asking for further assistance, more can be given, but even then it cannot be rescued. It is proper, in light of the above explanation, to address the great as yet unspoken concern about what to do with the overpopulation when this is solved. First of all, there will be a loss of many lives in the chaos that will ensue. Certainly not 5+ billion, but those who refuse to accept the truth will slow down the Paradigm Project's manifestation. The longer it takes to manifest, the greater the loss of life. Those who refuse to hear and accept after the project completion will be given the opportunity to come into balance in other situations, in other words they will live elsewhere, however this time with full knowledge and accompanied by records. Those who are the new paradigm will then have many choices and opportunities of places to continue their evolution. The members of the ground crew will remember who they really are and are welcome to return to the points of their origin. The balance will be returned, though planet Earth will need assistance in returning to health. It will not be as much of a task as might be thought now with the knowledge and techniques available for the asking. The remnant that remains will have interesting times in which to enjoy manifesting the new paradigm into wholeness. No further detail regarding the future will be given until that time arrives. It must be stressed that this is not the phase on which to focus. Until the first step is completed, the last step has no possibility of manifesting. Thus its explanation has been withheld. However, the concern about the overpopulation issue has necessitated this brief explanation. It is important that it be accepted that the future is well encompassed and then set that understanding aside so that the proper emphasis is placed where it belongs. It belongs on the completion of the first step, individual conscious acceptance of transcending from the victim in need of rescue, into personal responsibility through playing a decisive part in the conception and manifestation of a new paradigm of experience. End chapter 17.